Good evening. It's now 7 o'clock. I'm John Thrasher, the moderator of tonight's meeting. This is the Mettawee School District Annual Informational Meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting. I'm going to run through some rules and how we're going to operate tonight's meeting. This year's a little different in that we're doing this by Zoom instead of in person, which has caused us to make some changes. But typically, as you are well aware, for those of you that attend regularly, and Mr. and Mrs. Whedon, I think you've attended every meeting that I've been a moderator at. So I'm glad to see you here tonight. We're run by Robert's Rules of Orders. All motions and remarks should be directed to me as the moderator. The debate, if we have any debate on any questions, it can be cut off by a motion and a 2/3 vote. My role is to explain procedural questions and help us accomplish our agenda this evening. You are the voters, although we're not voting from the floor this year. Everything's being done by Australian ballot. It is your meeting and you direct the meeting. When you are speaking, I guess we'll go into the rules now for kind of conducting a Zoom meeting. This meeting is being recorded. We're streaming on YouTube as well. Everyone will be muted at the start of the meeting, and unmuted will only be done by the host. With that, you need to be recognized before you will be unmuted. We encourage you to use the hand raise response, which is in the chat feature, I believe. And we will then call on you. Excuse me, the chat feature is not being used, but if you have that little bar, participants bar, you can raise your hand. Celeste Keel will be unmuting folks and muting them. She'll read any questions from viewers. We ask that you turn off your video unless you are speaking. It makes for a smoother meeting. And Julie Mack, the chair of the board, will be doing a brief intro and explanation for each article when we get to it. Right now, I'd like to have the board introduce themselves, have the administration introduce themselves, and then I'll get into reading the warning.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Mack. I live in Pollitt, and I'm the chair of the board.
Hi, I'm Corey Rail. I live in Pollitt, and I am the vice chair of the board.
I'm Michael Kraus. I'm from Rupert. I'm speaking slightly out of order as a board member, but I do not believe that Arlene Bentley is present with us tonight. She would be the other Rupert board member.
I'm Scott McChesney. I live in Pollitt, board member.
Diane, do you want to unmute and introduce yourself? Okay, she's waving. I think you just cut off your video, Diane. I'll give you a second. All right, I'm gonna continue on, and Diane, once you figure it out, we'll maybe see if you can introduce yourself right at the end of this section. So my name is Randy Lowe, and I'm the superintendent for the Bennington-Rutland Supervisory Union.
Hi, I'm Sue Wilborn. I'm the business manager for the BRSU.
Hi, I'm Skylar LeBombard. I'm the director of teaching and learning at BRSU.
And I'm Brooke DeBonis, the principal of the Mettawee Community School.
Skylar, the next time you need to speak, you might need to speak up a little bit louder. We could barely hear you on this end. So now I'm going to read the warning, start to read the warning. The legal voters of Mettawee School District, consisting of the towns of Pollitt and Rupert, are hereby notified and warned to meet for an informational hearing virtually via Zoom on Wednesday, February 24th, 2021 at 7 p.m. to consider and act upon the following articles. In the legal warning, there is the Zoom link, the meeting ID, and the passcode. So to be acted upon on Wednesday, February 24th, 2021, Article 1, to hear and act upon the reports of the school district directors and officers. I will turn this over to Julie at this point, the chair.
Hi. So yes, we have, I'm hoping everyone has received their report, all of the annual school report. It's blue this year. All of the budget budget reports are in that. And so we will be discussing that tonight.
Okay, it's going to take me a little while to get this on and off. At this point in time, I'd like to go a little bit out of order. We're going to go to Article 3 for a second. Our state representative, Sally, and Sally, please correct me on the pronunciation of your last name. Is it Aki?
It's Aki. It
Aki.
rhymes with hockey.
Okay, Sally Aki, our state representative, has requested some time to speak to us. If there's no objections, I'm going to turn it over to Sally for a few minutes, and then we'll continue on with the rest of our warning. Ms. Aki, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank the board, your school board, for letting me come this evening. I'd like to thank your school board for the work that you have done. In the spring, when the state announced that the state educational tax rate might be facing an increase of 9%, that was a very grim projection. And because of an improved position in the state, they said fiscally, they said, well, maybe it'll only be 6%. And then because of the feedback they were getting from school boards like yours, it went down to, well, maybe it's 3.5%. The latest I've heard is only a 2% increase in the state education tax rate. It would be nice if it was 0% increase, but because of school boards like yours all across the state, doing the kind of work that you've done coming up with your budget, I think it's just a much more positive outlook than we had just a few months ago. I'd also like to thank the members of your board, the members of your communities, and your district, your unified district, for the feedback that I've gotten regarding educational bills. I enjoy, it's very valuable when I get input from people saying, I'd like you to support this bill, I'd like you to not support that bill. But the details that I've gotten, the factual details, the whys of your opinions is extremely valuable to me in being able to make an educated, informed vote on these issues. I'm sorry, I should have said at the beginning, I am the representative for the Rutland-Bennington district. So in your group, I represent Paulet and Rupert. I am not on the education board. I am on the committee for energy and technology. And I want you to know that just today we voted out of our committee a bill that is aimed at meeting the state's goal for broadband fiber, at least 100 symmetrical universal coverage for the entire state. And what does this have to do with education? You have to know that one of the incentives that we have, and we mentioned it in our bill, is education. The remote learning may not always be a part, or it may be an option from time to time, but if we're going to do remote learning, anywhere in the state, then every child in the state has to have access to that learning. And that's my message to you. Again, thank you for letting me speak. And I appreciate your feedback. And you can contact me if you go to the legislator's site. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm the first name on the list of representatives. That's all the time I'll take. So thank you so much for letting me join your meeting at the beginning. I do have to leave because I have to go to another meeting, but thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Akey, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Best of luck in the legislature this year.
Thank you.
Julie, I see you have your hand raised. I recognize Julie Mack, Chair of the Board.
I was hoping to be able to just ask Ms. Aki a quick question.
Okay.
Just thank you. I want to thank you for coming, and I did email you fairly recently. I have not had a response. I would just appreciate if you could let us know what your stance is on vaccinating educators.
On what? I didn't understand.
Educators, school staff and educators.
I'm still not saying, was that H81 that you were talking about, the bill?
I was hoping that we could ask for your support in pushing for all school staff and educators to receive priority for COVID vaccination.
Okay, I'm sorry. I did get your email, haven't had a chance to respond, and I will absolutely support you as being essential workers.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions before I go?
I'm not seeing any, Mrs. Aki. Thank you for your time again, and best of luck this legislative session.
Thank you. And again, everybody, whether you're in my district or the school board extends over, please, everybody, feel free to contact me if you have any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll go back to Article 2 to discuss articles to be voted on by Australian ballot. I see that, okay, that's been taken care of. So Article 4 is the first article that we're going to discuss, take questions on, take comments on. I'm going to read the articles, and then I will ask if anybody has any questions or comments, and we will discuss each of the articles individually. So the first is Article 4, shall the voters approve the 2022 annual meeting of the Mettawee School District be held on Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Mettawee Community School. Are there any questions or comments on Article 4? I'm not seeing any hands raised. I'm not seeing anybody's video coming on. So I'm going to move on to Article 5. Article 5, shall the voters authorize the school board to borrow money by issuance of notes not in excess of anticipated revenue for the fiscal year July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022? Are there any questions or comments on Article 5? Again, I'm not seeing any hands raised or any videos popping on, so I'm going to move on to Article 6. I'm going to read Article 6, then we're going to give the school board an opportunity to make a presentation before taking questions or comments. Article 6, shall the voters of the school district approve the school board to expend $5,671,569, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of $16,298 per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is 2.17% lower than spending for the current year. Now I'd like to recognize Julie Mack as chair of the board, or any other board member that she would like to have speak on their presentation.
Hi, John. Thank you. Randy will be sharing her screen, and we will be going through a presentation that we have put together. While this is working, I want to take a moment to thank everybody for coming. And this is just an aside, it's neither here nor there, but this is like the most nervous I've ever been for one of these meetings. And I feel, I guess I'll just tell you my feelings, although they're irrelevant in this. I feel like this is like the most alone I have felt at one of these meetings, not having a board sitting right next to me. So it's a very strange feeling. And if I struggle a little, it's likely that. And I understand that everybody else is probably feeling the weirdness of this meeting. We've been running our school board meetings via Zoom since, I don't know, April maybe. And so we've all gotten a little bit more used to it. And we have good, well-functioning meetings that I would encourage everyone to attend, especially now that you've been able to log yourself in here. You can do it, I promise. But it is just it's a little strange. We'll all get used to it and we'll all get through it together. Thank you. So the first thing we're going to just briefly talk on is some highlights to the budget. We have a new assessment program this year called iReady. It works for both assessments of children, and also it can be used as a daily sort of task for them to work on improving their reading and math. And as a mother, I can tell you, I've found this to be a much nicer, less stressful for the children assessment tool than some of the previous tools that we've used. It just seems to be something that they are just happier to do. It's a little more fun. We also have another learning management system called Seesaw, and we do, continue to pay for these programs. We have had an equity audit in our supervisory union focusing on what students need to be successful. And we'll have an expanded summer 2021 program to address the pandemic impact. I think this will be important. I know that people are concerned about what we're doing to kids with the impact of being out of school last spring, and we're definitely working to make sure that our kids are okay. And I believe that they will be. I believe that we're on the right track. Also, probably one of the biggest impacts on our budget was a reduction of 5 teaching and support positions, budget to budget. So we had in the fall of 2018 voted as a board to start working on adjusting our class sizes through attrition. So we were not looking to just to reduce staffing without it being sort of voluntary. We had a several-year plan to work on getting our class sizes to be in the 15 to 18 student range for K to 3 and 18 to 24 for 4 through 8. And so when we've had positions leave, we have opted to take a good hard look at whether that needs to be filled or not. And we were able to reduce 5 teaching and support positions. Our budget, I'm sure some of you will be delighted to see, is a 3.4% decrease from last year. And as I mentioned, the reductions in staffing is a lot of this. We also had some surplus that was returned to us from the supervisory union in both general and special education funds. And there is, of course, the good with the bad. We did have a 5.6% increase in our secondary program, and this was due mostly to increased tuition rates. There was one additional student in this calculation, but mostly it's increased rates. So our budget amount is $5,671,569. As I mentioned, this is a 3.4% decrease. We had the total reduction of 198,469 from last year, and the reduction in staffing was higher than that. It was 286,126. And the reduction in our BRSU assessments was 100,644. This is offset by the increase in the secondary program of 103,888. And we also looked at a decrease in local revenues, and that decreases 82,780. So when you put all those numbers together, we were still able to have a pretty significant decrease in our budget. The loss of revenues, a lot of that was just a change in how we're reimbursed for transportation and special education. And as mentioned, we did have surplus, and we applied that to our revenues. You can see in the table that's in front of you, any decreases in education spending are in parentheses. So while the budget decrease is 198, but our local decrease in revenues is lifting the budget back up, and then our surplus coming back in is reducing it back down again. I also want to take the time at this point, we have on the screen tax rate components. And some of these terms, we always go through them a little bit every year, and slowly but surely we all become a little more used to what they mean. But I would like to take the opportunity to point out when you first open the report, this first page inside has your table of contents, and you can see on pages 6 to 7 are the frequently used terms. I love this set of pages because I frequently go back to it to remind myself of what all of these things mean. And I would highly recommend it for you guys to do as well. If you're looking through your book and you seem confused, you feel confused about something, that's a great place to start. So we have education spending. We have equalized pupils. And that's another thing that is often confusing for people because it's not as simple as the number of kids in our school. So it's an average daily membership counts with weighting factors. It's a calculation that the state has set up. We have property yield. We have the Act 46 incentive. This is our last year of this, so you will not be seeing this on any presentation that we may or may not do next year. And a common level of appraisal. This is different for Paula and Rupert, and it's applied to the equalized rate for each individual town. This is another thing that was set up by the state of Vermont, and it has a lot to do with just how real estate is selling in your town, if it's selling near, above, or below the rates that homes are appraised at. Thank you. So this, I like this. This is also in our book. I always like this particular table. I think it helps to see how our tax rates come to be. So we create a budget, and that's where our work is as a district. And that's really the only place that we have much say and control. And I think that we did the best that we could by our constituents with reducing our budget by the 3.4%. Unfortunately, we did have a reduction in local revenues. And when you take those two numbers and you subtract the revenues from the budget, that shows a slightly less than 3.4% reduction right off the bat. We also had our equalized pupil number drop a small bit. And so that works against us in our tax rates as well. And then the property yield, which is not set in stone, but it looks like it will be going up, which is good, because that will help us to have lower rates. So we are looking at an adjusted rate of 1.404, which is a 7-cent reduction. And so this table can help us to see how these tax rates affect both Paulet and Rupert. And again, the CLA, the common level of appraisal, is different for every town. And so Rupert's was going up and Paulet's was going down. So Paulet is having a smaller decrease in our rate from last year compared to Rupert, which has a very significant decrease in their education rate. And then lastly, often people worry about what education rates are doing for their taxes, and I get it and I understand it. And we just like to take this opportunity to point out that the state does have an income sensitivity, and a lot of people don't realize how substantial it is, but it basically caps what you have to spend on education taxes based on your income. And it's 70.6% of Vermont homeowners would receive this, and almost 77% of Rupert homeowners do receive these tax credits. So that helps to insulate people that are not able to, have comfort in a rising tax rate. And I just want to stop at this point and thank you for listening to me ramble. And also just wanted to let you know that I want to take a second right now to sort of, our next slides are some feel-good slides, because I think it's important at these meetings to go through what we've already been through with our numbers and ask questions about the budgets to us and receive the answers that you need to do your duty as our constituents and voters. But I also think it's really important to see what we get out of the work that we do and why we're here, because we have some great kids that we love and take care of and are educating. And I think it's important for us to see some of that. So on this slide, we have some photos of our great kids at Mettawee. And I'm sure many of you know this, but we have some land adjacent to the school that is Merck Forest land, and we have utilized it so much. And I think it's great. And Brooke, I think, would like to talk to us about this.
Thank you all for being present tonight. I appreciate all the support that you give our school. We do appreciate the partnership with Merck Forest. We've been working with them the last few months on professional development with our teachers, which is helping us to have more lessons that we could use with our students outside. And currently, just because of COVID, we're really pushing a lot of outdoor education. Jana Webb, our PE teacher, is taking the kids out daily to do many different things with the land. You'll see that they're doing some sledding. And for some kids, it's their very first experience being able to do that, just because they don't have either the sled or the land to do it. So our students have really enjoyed that, as well as being able to just kind of explore the woods and build forts. That's been a lot of fun. I know our sixth graders enjoy like this mile hike that they do sometimes on Friday afternoons. And we're using it for many different purposes and different things. So the last lesson we focused on was animal tracks. And the kids were highly engaged with being able to do that. And there's different types of habitat. So we have the fields, we have the hills, and we have the forest. And I'm just really looking forward to what the land could provide our students. So there's a lot of great things happening in our school, and I appreciate all of the support that you give us. Thank you.
So thank you, everybody. We do, as Brooke said, we do appreciate your support, and that does it for our presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on Article 6 concerning the budget and the school board asking the voters to approve $5,671,569 for the annual school budget? I'm not seeing anybody's video pop on. I'm not seeing any hands being raised. Any questions, concerns? Well, seeing none, I'm going to move on to the next article. Article 7, shall the voters appropriate the sum of $40,000 for the Building and Grounds Maintenance Reserve Fund? Are there any questions or comments on Article 7? I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand. I'm not seeing any videos going on, so I'm going to move on to Article 8. Article 8 is to elect the following positions: a moderator for the Mettawee School District to serve from July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. A school district clerk to serve from July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. A school district treasurer to serve from July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. Pollitt to elect one director for a 3-year term expiring in February 2024. Pollitt to elect one director for a 3-year term expiring in February 2024. Rupert to elect one director for a 3-year term expiring in February 2024. Are there any questions or comments on Article 8? Seeing no hands or videos, I'm assuming that no one has questions or comments on Article 8. So we're going to go back. That's Article 2, to discuss the articles to be voted on by Australian ballot. So we've completed the business for Article 2. We're going to move on to Article 3 to transact any other business. Excuse me. Any other business which may legally come before this meeting. Does anybody have any other business which may come before this meeting? There is a question that has been posed. If anyone knows of someone not on the ballot who is interested in running for a vacant board seat, there are at least 30 votes required necessary to win as a write-in in this school district. Is there anybody aware of anybody running a write-in candidacy for a vacant board seat? I'm not seeing any boards. Anybody raise any hands? I did see a sign on the side of the road. Oh, wait, I have a Corey Rail.
Hi, sorry. Cynthia Morrissey is running as a write-in candidate for Pollitt.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say I saw a sign on the side of the road for Cynthia Morrissey running as a write-in candidate for the town of Pollitt. Is there anybody aware of anyone else running a write-in campaign? I'm not seeing anything. Is there any other business to come before this meeting? I'm not seeing any hands raised or any videos or any thumbs up. So I'm going to finish reading the, Julie, you appeared for a brief second. Do you have something to say or?
Sorry, that was just my ghost.
Okay. I'm going to finish reading the meeting and then we will adjourn to vote by Australian ballot. So the Paulet voters will vote at the town clerk's office in Paulet. The polls will open on Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021 at 9 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. The Rupert voters will vote at the Rupert Town Office in West Rupert. The polls will open on Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021 at 10 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. The legal voters of Mettawee School District are further notified that voter qualification, registration, and absentee voting relative to said annual meeting shall be as provided in Section 706U of Title 16 and Chapters 43, 51, and 55 of Title 17, Vermont statutes annotated. I know that Deb Hawkins, who is the clerk, is also the Paulet Town Clerk. I think she would highly encourage folks to vote early if possible so that we don't have crowds on voting day. Deb, if you're still here, do you want to give a brief mention as to how folks could vote early at this stage if they haven't already requested an absentee ballot?
Right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Do you need to see me?
No?
Okay. Yep, early voting is ongoing right now. We are at about 270 ballots have been sent out thus far for the town of Paulet. We're continuing to do that. We'll take early voted ballots up until the closing of the polls. People who come to the polls should be prepared to vote in their cars. We're going to do as much outside as we possibly can due to COVID. People will have the option of bringing their ballots once they're voted on into the building to run them into the tabulator themselves, or they can deposit them into a secure ballot box to be processed by 2 election officials at some point prior to the closing of the polls. We will not close out the polls in Paulet until we receive the ballots from Rupert, which will be delivered by 2 election officials. So there's only a couple days left. We're open tomorrow, then we're closed on Friday and open on Monday. We will probably be spending a good part of Monday processing early voted ballots as per a directive by the Secretary of State Elections Division this year. I do want to say one thing about write-in candidates. It doesn't so much, well, it does kind of qualify. This year, the Elections Division with the Secretary of State and the governor have issued another directive with regard to write-ins. And if a race has a candidate on the ballot and there are also write-ins, if the number of write-ins is not enough to win over the candidate on the ballot, we do not have to account for those write-ins. So in years past, we will say, okay, so John Thrasher got 3 votes, Patricia got 7 votes. We don't have to do that this year due to COVID. It's less handling of the ballots at the end of the day. In a race where there is no candidate, we will be, and there's enough write-ins on the tabulator tape to say, okay, there is a possibility that somebody has won this election. We will be going through and accounting for those write-ins. So in the case of the school board being 2 candidates, 1 on the ballot, 1 running, chances are the person who's running as a write-in will receive enough ballots, so we will account for those. So that's just a change for folks who would be looking for write-in information after the election. Does that
Thank you,
help?
Deb.
Yep.
Well, that is the end of the Mettawee School District Annual Informational Meeting. I strongly encourage everybody to vote and stay well and stay safe. Oh, we have Michael Kraus raising his hand, and then it went down. Michael Kraus is asking to be recognized.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes, I just thought it might be helpful if we could review what the process would be for someone who is interested in submitting a write-in. I don't want to misinform, so I thought perhaps Deb or yourself, John, might be able to elaborate on the steps that a person might take.
I'm not an election official. I don't know if Deb wants to answer, but my understanding is if there is somebody's name who is written in on a ballot and there are at least 30 of those names that are written in, that person would then be approached and said, you were elected. If you want to consent and accept this position, you need to sign some certain consent forms. In other words, you can't press somebody into service without their willingness to serve, but it's a matter of coordinating folks to get somebody, at least 30 names written in on a race, and then they are approached and asked if they are willing to serve because they had met the minimum number of votes required to elect someone to that position.
So disseminating that information could, I guess, happen through word of mouth. And as long as that person's name, assuming they've given their consent, appears on the ballot, that would be enough to initiate the process going forward. The individual person running would not have to submit a petition the way we have in the past, as I recollect.
Not for a write-in candidate. And it's too late to be added to the ballot this year.
Right.
This year, we weren't required to submit nominating petitions, but you just indicated your interest in, because the ballots have been printed and people are voting, you can't do that at this point. But anybody who is written in, they don't need to do anything ahead of the election. It's kind of post-election, will you be willing to serve?
Can I add something, John?
Sure can. You're
Okay.
the expert.
Well, no, I'm not the expert. With regard to the number 30, the way it is written is a person would need to receive 1% of the registered voters or 30, whichever is less. So for instance, in the town of Paula, a write-in candidate would need to acquire at least 12 votes because we don't have enough to make the 30. So it's the 30 or 1%, whichever is less.
Thank you for that clarification. That makes a big difference.
Yeah, I thought it might. So thank you.
And so since Rupert is smaller than Pollitt for registered voters, it would take less than that 12
It would
number.
take, yes, it would take less than that. Does that answer Michael's questions?
I believe it
Yes,
does.
thank you very much. And I think what I heard was in Rupert, you wouldn't really need more than 6 or 7, I think it was, to meet that criteria. So
That
thank you.
sounds about right. Are there any other questions or comments before we close out this meeting? Thank you, Julie, and all of the, oh, go ahead, Julie.
I was just wondering, how many years have you moderated this meeting, John?
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, is this a record?
This is a record, yes, by far. I would say that average attendance is 4 to 8 members of the public. I haven't gone through, I see we have 31 participants, of which, there's how many members on the board? 5, 7?
6.
6 members of the board and 4 professional support staff and myself. So that's 11 of us. That still leaves 20. So yes, this is a record, something to think about in the future. So thank you to the board for all your time and effort, especially in this past year. But I'm going to close out the meeting.
Just a
And-
second.
Oh,
This is Frank Nelson. I have a question.
sure, Mr. Nelson, go
Could
ahead.
Brooke or Julie or anyone of the board comment on how things have been going with COVID this year regarding the quality of education overall, given the circumstances? Thank you.
Hi, Frank. So one thing, and I did mention it in my letter that's in the report, we did have a reduction in our student population after everything was fully remote in the spring. I think that there were some parents that either realized that they could homeschool because they were forced into it, or just through nerves around the pandemic decided that they wanted to continue homeschooling for at least this year. So we did have kind of a loss of students. We also have some students that are counted in the number of students in our school that are working remotely from home. These children are still educated through our school system. They are attending daily meetings, they are completing attendance online, and they are doing the work and showing their teacher the work, and they're being graded on their work. I don't believe that this is, I believe that Vermont is probably doing very well in general. I think that our system has done an incredible job of making sure that we are working to be as equitable as possible and to do the best that we can with education. All that, all that given. I think that there were kids that staggered in back into in-person. There were several dates when you could opt in or out of in-person learning. And I believe that each step of the way, we've had more and more kids come, and they've been very happy to be back at school and just sort of have some sort of semblance of normalcy. And I think when we look back on this, we'll be proud of the work that we have done. Not we as in the board, but we as in this district. I think we've done a very good job. And if Brandy or Brooke wanted to add to that, that would be fine. But I commend everyone, and I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to every teacher that we have. They have worked very hard, and I don't know that they feel super appreciated, but they are. They really, really are. And anyone out there in the public that would like to express that through cards or something, I think it would go a long way. Thank you.
I just wanted to echo what Julie said. I feel like our teachers and staff are doing an amazing job educating our students this year. I wanted to kind of put a shout out to Mandy Mayer, our school nurse, who is also our COVID leader in our building. We've worked really hard at creating protocols and procedures so that our students are safe and our staff are safe. I have to say that we are meeting regularly for our staff meetings, and our teachers are doing a phenomenal job learning new tools to teach our students. And as we mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, we are using tools like Seesaw and Google Classroom as a platform for us to educate our kids, so those that are home can get access to the information as well as those that are in person. And our specials teachers have a completely different schedule that they're using this year, and it's going well overall. I just want to have a lot of special recognition for all the staff who are really flexible in learning new tools, and the partnership that we have with our parents. It's amazing how often we're connecting with our parents right now. Julie mentioned we do have community meetings where our students are meeting with their teachers on a regular basis. We have office hours to support our learners, and parents have a way of accessing our teachers when they have questions and comments. So right now I feel like the kids are getting a great education, and everyone's really working as a team to support all of our learners. So thank you.
Thank you, Brooke and Julie. We'll close the meeting at this point. Everyone have a good night and stay safe.